Today, we're diving into the topic of generosity, not just as donations, but as a way of life. My guest is David Huey, co founder of Hungry for a Day, an organization that for the past 14 years has been reshaping the way we think about hunger and giving. But I know David personally. A little side note, David's my cousin. He married one of my favorite cousins, Cherie, and Cherie and I grew up at the creek in the family reunion every summer. And David's joined along as we were in college and beyond and careers. And David's part of the family. David's also my baseball buddy. We take a baseball trip every year. And that has been one of my favorite experiences. And I look forward to it. And we're planning the next one. But David, what I love about him isn't just the impact of Hungry for the Day or his career and some of the things he's experienced. It's honestly what I love about David. It's the way he shows up in life. Whether he's leading a campaign or a nonprofit or something for his company, he just simply talks and chats and has conversations with people. When we go to barbecue places or coffee shops or ball games, David simply makes people feel seen. He listens, and you can tell in our friendship, he genuinely cares. So today we're asking, what happens when you build a life around radical generosity? Well, let's find out. Please welcome David Huey.
This is those iron sharpens irons. We've spent a lot of time together, and I think we'll groove off each other well today. And hopefully, everybody that's listening can take a little something away that'll make a little difference. And you mentioned in the intro, I love taking a good trip around a game, right? So me and a guy that I went to college with, were actually on a football road trip, and we were going to. I live in Atlanta, and had never been to a game at Alabama. I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm a Georgia fan. Go Dogs. But he was like, "You want to go see an Alabama game?" I was like, "Let's do it." So we drove over, went to an Alabama football game. Went to Archibald's Barbecue, which is one of those old Southern places, kind of built out of cinder blocks and that kind of thing. And had a great time. And we were just talking afterwards, like, man, it's a blessing that we get to do this.
Yeah.
And I remember passing some people that were obviously, I don't know if they're homeless or just struggling. People out there worried about food. They're worried about how they're going to pay their bills. And we're like, we have money to go to a football game and then go out for a nice meal afterwards. We're like, man, we're blessed. And we're just kind of in a really thankful place. And we're talking about how there's people that don't even have that opportunity. So that kind of started the catalyst. And then I read a book by Donald Miller, and he talked about, like, in the forward of the book, a guy that had this dream that once he retired, he wanted to buy a Volvo, and so the guy retires, buys this Volvo, and it's kind of like that guy's whole life was about buying this one car. And my thing is, if you're gonna wait your whole life to buy a car, hopefully it's better than that. But nothing wrong with Volvo. But I was struck by that, right? And I already had this kind of thing in the back of my mind, like, we're blessed, we get to do these. There's people that don't, and then it's like, what are we living for? Kind of even beyond that, and and at the time, it was kind of like sat back and took an inventory of my life, and it was, I'm involved in my church. I serve. I give to my church. I give to some other nonprofits. But other than just writing a check, what am I really doing that makes a difference in the world? So I took that book and I sent it to, and I can't even tell you what the rest of the book said, right? But it was just that forward, that first 2 pages really resonated with me, and sent it to my buddy, and I was like, you should read this. So he called me back a couple weeks later. He's like, what are we going to do? I didn't give any intro other than you should read this book. And I don't know if I'm thinking about this now. I don't know if we ever had a conversation about what in that book really resonated with you. And it could have been something completely different, but whatever it was like, what are we going to do? And so we're like, let's just start thinking about it. And I think going back to that original go to the football game, we wanted generosity to be the key. How do we live generously and make a difference in somebody's life? We're blessed. How do we bless somebody else? And we hadn't really thought about food, hunger related, that kind of thing. But we're like, let's just start looking for opportunities to live generously and just kind of see where this takes us. What path does God want us to follow? Let's just live in a place of, I don't know what the answer is, but let's just go through life and be open. And it's probably a month later, I heard about a guy, a friend of mine is a pastor up in Canton, Georgia, and he had started a church. They were meeting in an old grocery store, and in the back of the grocery store, they had all the shelving, all the refrigerators, freezers, and it was very easy to, we should start a food pantry because all we got to do is turn these things on. We got ways to keep the food. We have the shelving. We have the warehousing. And so people started bringing in food. And it was one of these big walk-in refrigerators. Well, their compressor broke, and now they didn't have any. So all they could give out was like dry goods, the canned goods, the green beans and the rice and whatever else people donated. But like they had a distributor that was giving them milk and meat and vegetables and these kinds of things that they just had to stop that program. And I think he just posted something on Facebook back when I actually used Facebook. And it was something like, hey, if anybody can help. So I called him up. I was like, what do you guys need? And he was like, we need to raise like $5,000 to get this thing going. And I'm thinking $5,000 is a lot of money. And so we just started putting it out there on, like, we didn't have a name of the organization. We didn't have a goal. We didn't have a nonprofit. We just said, hey, we heard about this need. Who wants to help? Mm-hmm. And within about 2 weeks, we raised enough money and went out there, wrote that guy a check. And I started having conversations about, what does this mean? And I remember I talked to one guy and he's like, what if I can't even afford to give? And I'm like, well, then don't eat, man. Don't eat for a day. All these other people really, they really can't eat because they don't have the money. You can make that conscious choice to say, you know what, I'm going to go without to help somebody else.
You said a couple things that, number one, you created AIM in a way. You didn't know exactly what it was, but I feel, and I've been studying this in a way, and some of the things, the themes of brave wisdom as well, is like courage will fuel radical focus. And I think this idea of focus, all of a sudden your focus became on generosity. That was the aim. And that was the perception and the reality. Now, when you heard about this church that had a need, that was already part of your aim and it fit. And then you were the one that took action. Most nonprofits in the hungry space will feed people, but you ask people to actually feel hungry. Where did that come from? And you mentioned, but what happens when someone chooses to go hungry for a day?
We used to do a monthly project, and every month we do a project, and we would challenge, our community to take a day each month and go hungry. Don't eat. Breakfast is pretty easy to skip. You probably have a cup of water. Lunch, you start to feel hungry, but come dinner time, it's awful, right? You're like, man, I am so hungry. You start to realize like there's people that don't have this choice. I'm consciously making the choice to not eat.
And for 14 years now, you've been doing it. And I know one of your bigger events is Thanksgiving, which is coming up. So what do you have planned for this year?
12 years ago, a guy that I went to college with, and his name's Tim, came up with this idea to feed 25 families a Thanksgiving dinner. And it was each Sunday, there's a different theme. Like, the first week was corn and green beans. Second was, sweet potatoes and cranberry sauce and so on. And the last week we were asking people to either bring a frozen turkey or donate a frozen turkey. And I remember I was sitting on the front row at church, and I'd come up and I had 10 minutes or so to talk about Hungry for a Day, about why generosity was important, why we wanted to impact our community. And Tim looks over at me and he's like, the band's up there playing, and he was like, hey, we had this goal of 25 families. So I was like, yeah. And he was like, what do you think about making it 50?
Come on.
So I had driven down the day before from Atlanta down to Pensacola. It's about a 5-hour drive. And I was like, Tim, as soon as this service is over, I'm getting in my car and I'm going back to Atlanta, and it's on you. So I don't really care what your goal is. He's like, we're doing 50. So he got up that day and cast vision. And they ended up feeding, I think it was 51 families that year. And,
come on.
Which is pretty cool, right? For a church of 100 people to give a meal to 50 families, it's pretty, right? And we came back and did it again the next year. I think the next year we fed, it was like 104 families. So we more than doubled the next year. Year 3, other people started hearing about it and they wanted in.
Yeah.
We brought on another church down in St. Pete, Florida. We brought on a company in Atlanta, brought us in, and we had these like collection barrels where we had people throwing in canned goods
Come
and
on.
that kind of thing. And it's a fun first full circle moment. I remember we were helping put this company, and it just really started connecting. It's like, because I'm in the business world, right? We didn't talk about that, right? The nonprofit is not my full time job. My full time job is I sell software, and been
Mhm.
doing that for almost 20 years now. But so here's a company that's challenging their employees to give, to
Come
live
on.
generously, to impact their community. And as we had these big collection barrels, I remember going to some kind of warehouse somewhere. We bought these big like cardboard barrels we had sit down all over. We had like made little signs on the old Microsoft Word and pasted them to the barrels. And we ended up, the food that we collected went to that first church that we started the project with, that we fixed the freezer, right? And they were able to put together some Thanksgiving meals. So it was pretty cool. It's grown. We went from that humble beginning of our goal of feeding 25 families. Last year, we fed over 65,000 people a Thanksgiving meal across the country.
Wow.
We have projects from Michigan to Florida, from California to Massachusetts. So literally across the country now.
And I think what I'm observing is from that, I think it started with even Tim kind of stretch goal. I love that in the principle of business, and we do what's called OKRs, where I love where
Yeah.
you guys said, "Hey, we can do 25," but he's sitting there on the front row. He's like, "Nah, we can do 25, but if we just go for 50, I know God will show up." And I
That's
think
right.
that's how it is, and we've seen it in our own lives, even in the business goals. But I think especially when it's fueled by generosity um, and exponential growth. And I think that's it. And what I love about what you just said is, again, speak into that more because so many people have ideas, but they think I don't have time, or I'm just a software salesman, or I'm a corporate guy, and how
Yeah.
do I manage a nonprofit? There's no time. I think that's a struggle, and I see in you, in your wife, you guys are live busy lives, but you feel there's a freedom that I think I see in you that many people don't experience in their life, a freedom just to do things and to act. How do you do that?
When I first started, I was like a sponge trying to soak up information because, again, like I sell technology, right? I don't know anything about the nonprofit world. So I'm going to these conferences earlier, trying to, like, again, be a sponge, soak up as much information. And I talked to this guy who led this conference. I think it was up in the DC area. And I was like, man, I'm trying to figure this out. We're doing this nonprofit. We've been about a year in. We hadn't even done the Thanksgiving giving project yet. Um, this is my day job. And he was like, you're going to have to give something up. And he's like, I don't know what that is because I don't really know you. He's like, but if you're going to successfully have a business career and run this nonprofit, he's like, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it, and I love football, right? As you know, I like baseball, but I really love football.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of guy that back then I used to watch football 5 days a week. The guy challenged me. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? If I actually want to make a difference, I'm going to have to create some margin in my life for that. And it can't just be when I have free time because I really don't have any because I'm doing all this stuff. I'm running a nonprofit. I got a job. I'm watching football nonstop. And so I cut out fantasy football, all 4 teams. I just quit them. Just can't do this. I stopped watching the NFL
Wow.
completely. So that
Yeah.
took out Sunday, Monday, Thursday. So I said, I'm going to completely focus. And now I'm going to block these hours off and say, all right, if I'm not watching football after I come home from church on Sunday after I have lunch from 3 to 6 or whatever it is, I'm going to put that on my calendar, and that's going to be my nonprofit time. Monday Night Football is like, okay, I'm going to come home, I'm going to eat lunch, or I'm going to eat dinner. Game comes on at 7. It's going to be on till 11. 7 to 11, that's my nonprofit time.
Yeah. So you made space. I read on your website too, like generosity changes everything. What do you mean by that?
It changes your heart to say, like, hey, this is not just about me and building my personal kingdom and my wealth or my buying every kind of little toy and gadget that I want because it makes me feel good because I think I deserve it. It's saying, how do I live with open hands? And there's nothing wrong with going to a baseball game. You and me do that, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to take care of your family. But it's like, how do I create that margin to impact somebody else? And I think, I think a great first step is that emotional gift that I hear this appeal. And now I can feed a family for $40. If you're listening to this and say, hey, I want to help, go to hungryforaday.com You'll see a big button there. You can click and give $40 to feed a family, right? We'd be honored to have you participate with us. You got to get past that point of like, oh, I got $40 in my pocket and I'll give. It's like the people that go to church and they're like, how do they give? I'm going to see if I got extra cash in my pocket and I'm going to give a tip. There's nothing wrong with giving that way. Like if you want to become strategic in your generosity, you got to plan for it. And I heard Andy Stanley, who's a pastor in the Atlanta area a few years ago, he said, you got to automate what's important.
That's good.
So you think about your light bill. I don't want my lights getting turned off.
No.
I had my gas turned off once because like the auto pay got set up and I didn't realize it. So I didn't have hot showers for a few days. It wasn't because I couldn't afford to pay the bill. It was something got messed up in the bill. So you know what I do? I automate what's important because I like hot showers in the morning. I don't necessarily like cold showers. I'm not a cold plunge guy, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with generosity. If generosity does, if this is going to be a way of life for me, I need to automate that. And so, there's nonprofits, my church, people that I give to automate automatically every month. But I also have kind of a slush fund that I put money in every month. And it's there specifically so I can give it away.
That's beautiful.
And it may be, hey, I'm going to pick up somebody's meal. It may be that, hey, I heard somebody's washing machine went out and I'm going to go provide a washing machine for them.
Yeah.
I may want to do that anonymously. I don't know. I've done it both ways, right?
As we kind of land the plane here and kind of discuss and wrap up this conversation, you ask others to go hungry for a day, but here's a good question. What are you still hungry for?
I think I want to continue to live generously. I don't want to live my life for myself. And I think that's and maybe it's even one of those things like when we start Hungry for a Day, we don't even know where this is going to go. But it's living with open hands, saying, hey, what I have, I don't want to build a life for David. I want to build a life that impacts other people and kind of see where that takes me.
I think that's aim. And I think it's others. I say it often, and this is something I live by now. And I've come to learn that the formation and the work God's doing in us, it's for the sake of others and simply for love. And every meal is an act of love. Everything that I've heard you say with the way that you work with other churches and people is an act of love. So I'm excited to share this story with the world and hope that this conversation even sparks some movement and some greater hunger, both in the people that are giving as well as the people that I believe are going to be so impacted by your work and Hungry for a Day as well. But I just want to thank you, David, for sharing your heart, your journey, and your generosity with us. Remind people again, how can they connect with Hungry for a Day? Where can they find you guys?
Hungry for a Day. You can find us there on Facebook and Instagram. You can go to our website, hungryforaday.com. We have 3 types of givers. The first is the individual giver. Last year, we had over 2,000 individual givers. We have our faith partners. Churches, we come in and help churches set up a generosity program to impact their community. Everything from collecting food to distribution, we help with that. Corporate partners will go in, they'll set up a match campaign, they'll challenge their employees, their vendors, their customers to give, and they will impact their community and say, hey, we're not just about trying to make a buck, but we want to actually make a change in the communities we work in. And we help set those up.
And I love that you're spinning the wheel both in the church space and the business space, because I think as the more of that happens, we're going to see kingdom change in our culture and in the lives of people, of countless people. If today this conversation resonated with you, don't let it pass, because maybe today is a time for you to stop just talking about impact. And as you heard David so many times in this conversation, stop just talking about it and have the courage to live it. Generosity doesn't just change the world. We know it will. It also changes you. And I believe our culture in America is starving for meaning. You see it. We're starving for meaning because we want to live differently. But I challenge you listening, live hungry, live brave. We'll see you next time on the Brave Wisdom Podcast.